Today we are going to study the chapter The Rattrap by Selma Lagerlöf. Selma Lagerlöf was a Swedish writer whose stories have been translated into many languages. A universal theme runs through all of them, a belief that the essential goodness in a human being can be awakened through understanding and love. The story is set amidst the Main Sweden, rich in iron ore, which figure large in history and legends of that country. The story is told somewhat in the manner of a fairy tale. Let's begin the chapter. Let's first deal with the theme of the chapter. The story upholds the belief that the essential goodness of a human being can be awakened through love and understanding. It brings into the focus the idea that the world is a rat trap. Riches, joys, shelter, and food are all lucrative baits to trap mankind. That is, we need to learn the lesson not to go after the materialistic things. Now, let us talk about the title, The Rat Trap. The rat trap is a metaphor to highlight the human predicament. That is, the human nature. Just as a rat is fooled by a bait and gets trapped, most human beings are likely to fall into the trap of materialistic benefits. Now let us see the setting of this chapter. The story is set amidst the mines of Sweden, rich in iron ore, which figures large in the history of that country. The story is told somewhat in the manner of a fairy tale. Now let us see the characters who are involved in this chapter. First is a peddler with the rat traps, the main character. An old man, a crofter, master smith in the Ramsdö iron mill in Sweden. Helpers in the mill, that is, they are the blacksmiths. Iron mill owner, and Edla Wilmanson, the daughter of the iron mill owner. Now let us see the summary of this chapter. The central character is a beggar and a petty thief who goes about selling rat traps of wire to make a small living. He finds it difficult to make both ends meet. It makes him reflect about his own condition and the world at large. He fancies that the whole world is nothing but a big rat trap. It offers rich and varied baits to people who bite on them and get trapped in the rat trap. The storyline unfolds gradually with the various baits being offered to the beggar. That is, in this chapter we are going to understand how this particular central character refers to the world as a rat trap. The old man that the tramp meets is generous with his hospitality, but the bait of the 310 kroner bills is enough to tempt him. That is the temptation he gets, which he cannot ignore, and that is why he becomes a thief. Next, at the Ramsdö ironworks, while seeking shelter for the night, the tramp bites the bait offered to him by the owner, the ironmaster of mistaken identity, a peddler, a thief, a vagabond who doesn't have any home, who doesn't have meal to live. Now when he's been offered a shelter by the mistaken identity, he takes into that bait. Edla, the ironmaster's daughter, offers yet another bait of full-hearted generosity, comfortable living, and a magically peaceful Christmas for the tramp. Now let us see what happens towards the end of the story. Finally, the bitter truth dawns on the host. Edla is really sad. She's really disappointed when she learns that the peddler is a thief. The tramp undergoes a change of heart after experiencing her kindness. It is the kindness of Edla, her generosity, that changes this peddler. He returns the stolen money and writes a letter to her, thanking her for helping him escape the rat trap. That means the world was offering him the bait and he ignored the bait, and now he wanted to live a decent living. He attains nobility of spirit and becomes Captain von Stahl. The story ends with the victory of human goodness. Now let us see which are the main points to remember in this chapter. The Rat Trap is a story that underlines a belief the essential goodness in human beings can be aroused through sympathy, understanding, and love. Once a man went around selling small rat traps, but he took to begging and theft, to keep his body and soul together. One day he was struck with the idea that the whole world is a big rat trap and it offers riches as bait and makes an honest and a decent person a thief. People let themselves to be tempted to touch the bait. Then it closes in on them, bringing an end to everything. One dark evening, the rat trap peddler sought shelter in an old crofter's roadside cottage. The old man gave him food, tobacco. They enjoyed the card game too. Next morning, the peddler stole away his 30 kroners. The rat trap peddler escaped into a big confusing forest and got lost. While resting on the ground, he recollected his idea that the world is a rat trap and thought his end was near. Hearing a thumping sound, he reached Ramso's ironworks for a night shelter. The owner came on his nightly rounds and noticed the ragged wretch near the furnace. He mistook him to be an old acquaintance of his, Nils Olaf. He invited him to stay with them for Christmas, but the stranger declined the offer. His daughter Edla Wilhelmsen persuaded to go home with him. She requested him to stay for Christmas Eve only. On his way to the manor house, the peddler thought that he had thrown himself into the lion's den. The next day, in broad daylight, the ironmaster realized the stranger was not the captain and threatened to call the sheriff. Edla pleaded for him and asked him to stay back. Christmas Eve at Ramsdow was as usual, and the stranger slept and slept. She made him understand that if he wanted rest and peace, he would be welcome next Christmas also. This had a miraculous effect on him. Next morning, they went for early church service, leaving behind the guest who was asleep. They learnt at church that a rat trap peddler had robbed an old crofter. Edla becomes very upset. They reach home immediately and learn that the peddler had already left but had not taken anything at all with him. Instead, he had left a small packet for the young girl as a Christmas present. She opens the packet and finds a rat trap, 3 wrinkled 10-kroner notes, and also a letter with a request to return the kroners to the crofter. That is, we see that the chapter ends on a positive note, that this peddler undergoes a change of heart by the kindness, generosity, and goodness of Edla.